Well, we're joined now by Anjem Choudary of Islam for UK and by Maajid Nawaz from the counter-extremism think tank, the Quilliam Foundation. I see in your statement today that this decision, in your judgment, is a victory for Islam and for Muslims. How does that work?
Well, absolutely, because if you believe in something, then it should be good for all times and places. The government advocate democracy and freedom. Supposedly, their own soldiers are dying for freedom and democracy in Afghanistan. And yet, when we expose their foreign policy, as we did with the mere suggestion of having a procession in Wooden Basset, suddenly you find that freedom dissipates and you have dictatorship.
And how's the campaign to move Britain over to Sharia law coming along?
Well, this is in the hands of God. We do our best to propagate Islam. Well, of course it is. I think many people will see that democracy and freedom is no good for the British, no good for Afghanistan, and in fact, we need an alternative. Unlike man-made law, the Sharia is not something which gives you a right today to take it away tomorrow. It's good in all times and places.
What is gained?
Siri, to make this an issue of freedom and democracy is absurd. Anjem, you haven't had a hair on your body touched by this government or this country. You haven't spent a day in prison. You haven't suffered one bit for your views. You're allowed to sit here right now because of freedom and democracy. In your so-called caliphate, you'd have me killed, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you have me... Am I an apostate that deserves death?
Well, I mean, obviously, Maajid Nawaz is part of an apostate organisation called the Quilliam Foundation. He's paid by Alan Johnson and Gordon Brown to say what he's saying.
Anjem, how many thousands of pounds a year do you get on benefits?
This man gets £2 million with his and his organisation in order to fight against Islam and Muslims.
Look, he's asked you two questions. Firstly, under your caliphate, he would be executable, would he?
He would be judged by an Islamic judge, and then after that...
And his second question, his second question, did you hear that?
Repeat the second.
How many thousands of pounds are you receiving from the British government every year on dole money?
On dole money.
Are you on the dole? Are you on the dole?
At the end of the day, when you lose the argument, it's very easy.
So now I'll ask you again: have you had a hair on your body touched by freedom and democracy?
For both of you, obviously, and the 5-minute clip that you played here, I'll tell you something. All of you are in one camp, the camp of non-Islam, against the camp of the Muslims.
So what's the verdict?
What the Muslims out there will see, what the Muslims out there will see, is that you have already played a clip 5 minutes long in order to demonize the Muslims. There's a bunch of lies told by Mr. Watson in that clip. It will take me 5 minutes at least to refute all of those.
Do we deserve death?
And on top of all of that, you have a chumcher like yourself here propagating what the government wants to do.
Can you answer any one of my questions?
And at the end of the day, we are people. You can gang up on us as much as you want. Ultimately, Islam will prevail.
I want to ask you, just a second, hang on a second. What is gained by banning an organisation? You may think he's talking nonsense, but what's gained by stopping him talking nonsense?
On this very show...
A lot of money by Maajid Nawaz.
Hang on.
On this very show, I oppose the government in banning Hizb ut-Tahrir. There's a clear difference, even though that was government policy at the time. And the difference is that there are over 20 members or affiliates of his group that are serving in prison on terrorism offences. I met members of his group in a Lashkar-e-Taiba training camp in Pakistan. These people describe the 9/11 attackers as the Magnificent 19.
We've got the list.
Well, no,
these people believe
to say that the blood by the government.
That's the only reason he's saying. Anjem, allow me to finish one thing.
Hang on, my friend.
Listen, I've known you for over 15 years. I've known you for over 15 years.
No, I've never met you before.
Yes, you are my solicitor in the East Ham murder case. You're my solicitor.
What are you talking about, Maajid?
Were you not my solicitor in the East Ham murder case?
You cannot deny that there are, as he says, members of your organisation convicted of crimes serving sentences in prison.
Why were they convicted? You have people in prison. Wait a second.
So you just denied it, now you admit it.
No, wait a second, Jeremy. Let's have a look at the facts. You have people holding placards at a demonstration against the cartoons. There's a man who held a placard about Denmark. He got 6 years for holding a placard. And yet you have paedophiles and murderers out there getting suspended sentences. That is the Britain that we live in today. It is an apartheid system. The Muslims are treated as sacrifices. You need to wake up. You need to wake up to the reality. I'm not paying attention to you. You need to wake up to the reality of the situation.
If I'm judged an apostate by a Sharia court judge, will I be executed in your caliphate? Answer that question.
You know very well that you have left the deen of al-Islam because you side with the enemies of Islam against the Muslims.
As a judge...
The one stands with them is one of them.
So will I be executed as an apostate in your caliphate?
You've asked him about apostasy. This question is getting to Michael Howard levels. You've asked it dozens of times. You're not going to answer
submit yourself.
You're not going to answer the question, right?
Well, it's a ridiculous question. He knows the answer to it already.
Well, the public don't answer the question, do they?
I think they will draw their own conclusions.
Let's deal with the real issues.
If you are so confident of your position, Will you be appealing against this decision?
We don't appeal because we don't believe it's allowed to appeal to man-made law. Secondly, we have had the most support we've ever had.
Well, in that case, why are you
following
bothered
the
about
ban
it?
this morning by Alan Johnson, we have been inundated with calls and emails from Muslims and non-Muslims to say that they support us, and quite frankly, they're disgusted by the government, who, on the one hand, advocate freedom and democracy, but when it comes to people who want to practice, you know, their own, if you like, views under the realms of their own law, suddenly that becomes dictatorship.
On the BBC.
At the end of the day,
at the end of the day,
the point is that this is a great victory for Islam and Muslims. And
well, you would be. I mean, you wouldn't be around in this. You wouldn't be around this caliphate. But listen, don't you think tactically, whatever you think about nutty views,
nutty views which you two are presenting today,
profoundly held convictions, whatever you want to call it.
Let me ask you something, Jeremy. Do you
hang on, I'm asking him a question. You hang on.
Oh, no, but yeah, you're using pejorative.
Is it not counterproductive to wait until something potentially provocative happens, which it doesn't happen in the end because they called it off, like this march in Wootton Bassett, and then to impose a ban on their right to say things?
And that's a mistake the government has made. These people should have been banned when they set up Islam for UK, and it's wrong of the government to suddenly decide to ban them. They should have been banned from the beginning. They are different to Hizb ut-Tahrir, though they're an offshoot of Hizb ut-Tahrir. They do promote and glorify violence. Of course you are. Omar Bakri was the leader of Hizb ut-Tahrir in this country.
Accuse us with all these lies.
Well, you made that point already.
With Hizb ut-Tahrir one day in your life? Have you never been a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir? Have you never been with Hizb ut-Tahrir in your life?
I've never been a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir.
Have you been a Daris? Have you been a student of Hizb ut-Tahrir? Can you answer that question?
That's one of my questions. The point is, Maajid, Quilliam Foundation is going to be wound up because your own people, your organisation will expose you quite shortly.
All right, chaps. You can continue this elevated dialogue outside. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.